Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) to sell 722 billion naira worth of treasury bills in third quarter of 2021. Nigeria likely to earn 462 billion naira from electronic money transfer levy in 2021, says the World Bank. 5,200 youths get 1.62 billion naira loans under the federal government's Youth Investment Fund, as 25,000 others await approval. Plus, Japan's Nikkei 225 jumps more than 3% as Asia-Pacific stocks mostly rise. Details of these and more on Business Express on the network service of the NTA. And we are reaching you live from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I'm Liakatin Baba today. We begin the business of the day by informing you that the Central Bank of Nigeria says it will sell 722 billion naira worth of treasury bills (TBS) in the third quarter of 2021. The Apex Bank disclosed this in its Nigeria Treasury Bills issue program for the third quarter of the year. The bank added that the treasury bills would be issued in tranches, with the first tranche already rolled out June 3, 2021, while the last tranche is scheduled for August 28, 2021. During the period, CBN will issue treasury bills worth 41.35 billion naira on 91 days tenor, 151.13 billion naira on 182 days, and 529.68 billion naira on 364 days paper. The World Bank has said Nigeria is likely to make 462 billion naira from electronic money transfer (EMT) levy as a source of stable revenue in 2021. The multilateral institution said this in its Resilience Through Reforms report, which shows that the electronic money transfer levy was introduced in the Finance Act of 2020, which amended the Stamp Duty Act and taps into the growth in electronic funds transfer in Nigeria and can be administered at low cost. EMT levy is a singular and one-off charge of 50 naira on electronic receipts or transfer of money deposited in any deposit money bank or financial institution on any type of account on sums of 10,000 naira or more. The revenue derived from the EMT levy is shared based on derivation and distributed at 15% to the federal government and federal capital territory and 85% to the state governments. Now, how much is naira exchanged in for other currencies? Nigeria Customs Service has restated that it will sanction owners of private aircrafts who fail to report for verification. Kunle Adeyeye reports that the service public relations officer Joseph Atha gave the update midway into its one-month verification exercise.
Owners or their representatives are to report to room 305, Tariff and Trade Department, Nigerian Customs Service Headquarters, number 3, Abidjan Street, Wuse Zone 3, Abuja, FCT. From Monday 7th June through Tuesday 6th July 2021.
That was 31st May 2021 when the Nigeria Customs Service invited owners of private aircrafts for verification. 2 weeks down the line, only 6 owners of privately owned aircrafts have responded, prompting the service to remind those involved that there will be sanctions for non-compliance at the end of the exercise in the next 2 weeks.
NCS will not hesitate to evoke appropriate sanctions on any defaulting private aircraft owner immediately after the expiration of the verification period on Tuesday 6th July 2021.
The customs spokesperson emphasized that the move is to ensure all privately owned aircrafts in the country are properly imported, cleared, and appropriate taxes paid.
Let's now take a look at the commodities market. The Nigerian Youth Investment Fund (NYIF) of the federal government, being operated by the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, has disbursed loans of 1.629 billion naira to 5,200 youths, while another set of 25,000 are on the waiting list for approval and disbursement of their loans. A statement signed by the Director Press and Public Relations of the Ministry, Mohammed Manga, said a total eligible applications approved stood at 6,054, out of which 5,200 disbursements were made, leaving the number of those that have been approved but yet to get disbursement at 854. The number of unqualified applicants for the batch stood at 721. He explained that an advisory from the ministry revealed that some applications were turned down because the applicants did not provide valid or correct contact details for communication and steps in the loan application, or had existing AXMEs or COVID-19 loan, while some others were more than 35 years old, which puts them beyond the age bracket for youth. He also reminded the beneficiaries and applicants that the monies being disbursed by the NYIF to the Nigerian youths are not grants but repayable loans. Now, only last week, the IMF published its findings after a mission to Nigeria by its team led by Ms. Jasmine Rahman. The team, among its findings, stated that real GDP is recovering, but unemployment and inflation remained elevated. This position is further exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic and its consequences. Now, how will jobs be shaping the recovery path post-COVID-19? This is our focus this morning, and I have with me an economist, Dr. Faswa, who will be speaking to the issues. You're welcome to Business Express this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Great. So now, the report by the IMF had some very outstanding findings, and of course, employment levels have continued to reduce, in fact, beyond the pre-COVID-19 levels. What does this mean?
Well, it's to be expected, really, because it's not even only a Nigerian phenomenon. It's all over the world. When you have such a phenomenon as COVID, a pandemic, once in a century kind of event, that had everybody closing down shop, everybody staying at home, businesses shutting down, people being laid off, small businesses folding up, and so on, it's to be expected that this will happen. However, like I've been telling people, a boom is coming. A boom is coming. And in fact, in some parts of the world, largely in some of the developed countries, they're already beginning to experience a boom, because after every pandemic such as this, or after every world war, comes a major boom, So we should also, first of all, understand that that is the trajectory, and also get prepared for that boom. But for now, it is normal that the level of unemployment will be elevated than what it was pre-COVID, even though we've really never done so well in terms of employment generation, and what in economics we call achievement of full employment. We haven't actually really done well as a country, so this has only exacerbated our scenario, and I think our job is cut out for us to double down and do better than we were doing.
Okay, so what does this mean for a country like Nigeria with a lot of jobs being lost?
Invariably, yes, with jobs being lost, you're going to have so many things: elevated crime rates, youth restiveness, all the other evils in society, frauds and everything, general restlessness, in society. That's the upshot. Unemployment is perhaps is the biggest problems facing youth all over the world, and especially in Nigeria. And it's a major issue in economics. Slice it or dice it. The government, at the end of the day, is in charge of providing, of at least targeting employment for its people. Not necessarily the private sector. The private sector can help. But the government, any sitting government must worry about unemployment on a daily basis. So if you are co-opting the private sector, or you're doing something out of the box yourself, you have to do something to take people off the streets. And you can see Nigerian government, of course, you read about NYIF just now, Youth Investment Fund or so, and the number of people they've disbursed to. It's important to emphasize that that's a loan, not a grant, because you'd wonder that I think that quite a number of people have collected such loans in this country, and then they just keep quiet about it. Some people think, oh well, this is my share from the government, and that's not right, because if government is pushing out those kind of monies, you expect that, okay, fine, if people use it the way they said they would, perhaps there'll be less problem in society. It's not only NYIF, there's AXMI's loan for small and medium enterprises, there's Anchor Borrowers loan and all that stuff. There's all sorts of things that government has pushed out, because we now live in an age of what we call neo-Keynesianism, whereby economies have had to go back to the teachings of Maynard Keynes in the 1930s to say, when everything breaks down, government must step up. No matter what, government must step up. Sometimes you have to print and spend, but government must step up, because if you say you should wait and say in the long run everything will come back to normal, according to Maynard Keynes, he says that in the long run we're all dead, So we would want some of these things to continue, and for people to be honest, for Nigerians to be honest, to use these monies, even though I don't believe that's the final solution, but it is also part of the solution.
Okay, talking the solutions now, what are the type of jobs, because jobs have naturally changed, right? Yes. So what are the type of jobs that we need to propel growth, considering all the variables before us?
I think before even thinking about jobs to propel growth, we need to think about jobs to ensure stability. Because we live in very unstable times now. Some people are asking for Nigeria to be split and all that. All of that, many times, is just a reaction to tough times, really.
Trends, yeah.
In 2019, a United Nations report was written about the housing sector in Nigeria that says that Nigerians live in some of the worst conditions in the world. The rapporteur for United Nations, a lady, was here. She moved around the whole country and documented what she saw. So when people are coming out of, if 70% of Nigerians are living out of ghettos and rundown area, no light, no water, and all of that, you can expect that they'll be hungry. But I would say that beyond looking at the new kind of jobs that are around now, because the kind of jobs that are around now are things in the area of analytics, high tech kind of jobs, robotics, knowing how to work artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, those kind of sophisticated jobs, those ones will be there. Number one, they will not employ the millions that we have. All right. So I would say that we should target jobs that focus on stability, so that when we establish a very good foundation for our economy, we can then grow. Nigeria, I would say that if you look at the developed countries of the world, the public sector is still the largest employer. People try to run away from that. We get taught wrongly many times in our schools, in our universities. The idea that private sector is the one that generates employment is wrong, because private sector is actually in the business of maximizing profit. If you look at our banks now, they've laid off almost everybody in the banking sector. I mean, they tell you anything less than 100,000, go to the machine to withdraw. You know what I'm saying? So that tells you that, look, you can't set store on the private sector. Private sector will be private sector. But you see, because we have not created the foundation for our economy, then we're in trouble. So area of security, for example, if you don't fix security, you're never going to have businesses that will thrive. So what do you do about security? Is either you employ machines or you employ human beings. In your own interest, I think it's better you employ human beings. Because if you use machines to control human beings, in a while the human beings will revolt against the machines. You know, so you're better off, you know, distracting people. They call it creative distraction. Let the people man their own security. Things like education sector, we are not doing well at all. We have almost 15 million children on the streets in the whole of Nigeria. You know, you need to take them off the streets, and that means two things. That means you need to rejig your educational sector. You're going to need a lot more schools, you're going to need a whole lot more teachers, and then you're going to need a brand new social services sector. The way it's done abroad, we don't even have to reinvent the wheel. You know, abroad in the United States, for example, there's 680,000 people that are employed in social services. All they do, these are graduates, right? You know, all they do every morning, they have the files of the children they look after. They have 8 to 10 children, and then they go and visit all those children and ensure that no child is roaming on the streets, put them in foster homes and do whatever you have to do, you know, and all follow up on them. That is how you build a nation, because when you have so many children off the streets and out of school, then of course the future itself is jeopardized. So I would actually recommend that Nigeria, the next level of jobs, nobody should deceive us and say, oh no, you know, your public sector is already over bloated. Our public sector has not actually started.
Going to ask you that
it has, empirically speaking, it hasn't started. So in the United States, for example, 17% of people who work at all, of all workers, work for the government in the United States. You know, the largest employer is Department of Defense, of course, because they have a lot of all these bases all around the world and so on. You know, 3.7 million people is employed by the U.S. Department of Defense. In the United Kingdom, 21% of workers work for government. The largest employer is the National Health Service. So that tells you where the opportunities are. Defense or security, health sector, environmental sector, we haven't even started, you know, educational sector, social service sector. And this is what they call public goods in economics. You know, when you don't have those public goods and you tell people to just go and establish businesses, you know, it's going to fail. And we see a scenario where so many of our youths are quote and unquote in entrepreneurship and so on. But who's selling to who? Who's buying from who? When the purchasing power in society has collapsed, you know, you're just going to be trying in vain. Go to many of our malls, and you see the footfall is very, very low compared to what you see abroad. Maybe if you went to Dubai and so on, you see millions of people rushing into malls to go and buy stuff. Here, it's not easy. So you ask yourself, how are they selling? How are they paying their rent? How are they paying their staff? And in time, you see that they lay off almost everybody, and you know, they're just barely surviving and racking up debts.
Okay, talking about laying off now, we've had a lot of apprehension. There's palpable fear from most public workers. There's going to be job cuts. They're going to reduce the staff strength. We've heard that from the federal down to the barest minimum. Can we afford that now?
We certainly can't afford that, and we have to be extremely careful, because when you mention the local government now, I remember that Kaduna State Governor was saying that he wants to ensure only 50 staff per local government. Look, so you see, we've got to be very careful, because there's some sort of ideology war going on right now. You know, you want to have 50 staff per local government. Now, let me say this very clearly. The thing is that we don't need people in local government secretariat or state secretariat or federal government secretariat. That's not where we need the staff, okay?
So
but
where do we need
for
them?
our own good, you know that most of our villages have no government presence at all. And when I was serving, like in 1991, we had MAMSA, we had DIFRI, we had all those things, and there was a palpable movement of people, mass mobilization, young people going to villages, telling them about the plans of government. That's also another sector. I mean, so that collapsed into NOA, but of late we don't hear much from NOA. You're not anchoring the strength and the innocence and the passion of the young people of this country. Then you leave them to the elements, and they get anchored by all sorts of secessionists and all sorts of people who are parading their own extremities all over the place. This is an opportunity, actually. And like I said, that is what the Nigerians, when they say there's no enabling environment. So when you see, so you rather than just, you don't also scare people when you come, like the governor came and said he wanted to lay off so many people. You're selling a negative view to them. What you need to do is to sell a positive view to them. There's work in this country. There's work in the public sector of this country. Not in the secretariat, but outside. We need people to be outside. Look, I'm telling you, 15 million children out of school, you probably should be employing about 200, 300,000 teachers, to be able to take care of those people. The ones that are in school don't even have teachers. When I moved around the country in 2018, thereabout, when I was doing some campaign and so on, I saw many schools that had only one teacher. Some had none. If you were lucky, you'd find 2 teachers in a public school. If it was a very important school, you find 3 teachers or 4 teachers. And the world is talking about reducing the number of students to teacher ratio and so on. That let a teacher be in charge of maybe 30 children so that you can actually impart. So we haven't actually started. And where we're going to start, you see, we can rigmarole all over the place, talk about entrepreneurship, give out all sorts of loans and all of that. On ground, we're not seeing the numbers. We're not seeing the impact. So 33.3% of Nigerians are unemployed today. 42% of youth are unemployed today. Underemployment is 22.8%. So meaning that more than half of Nigerians who should be working are not working. And of course, this is also going to help us in reshaping the minds of Nigerians away from this get rich or die trying scenario. The whole idea of going into entrepreneurship is everybody's trying to be a billionaire, a millionaire and all. You don't need that, really. There's nothing wrong in a honest day's job, dignity of labor, working as a teacher just out of university, working as a teacher for 30, 40, 50,000 naira for the next 2 years before you move on to something else. Absolutely nothing wrong. In the environmental sector, we could generate 2 million jobs in this country today. Nigeria has now become the country with the highest incidences of open defecation, for example, all over the country is a major problem. Just last week, I said Ghana is planting.
I'm told that we need to end this conversation now.
So there's so much to do in Nigeria. Nigeria has not started, and I think that it's an opportunity, all these challenges we're facing.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Tope Fasua, for always shedding light. Now let's move on to surviving COVID-19 with Benny Adams.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Good clothes, they say, open all doors. All of this is the business of Paul Harris, an Abuja-based fashion designer whose line of business is bespoke, meaning tailor to measure for all outings. It all started with a passion in fashion, expressed in the love for well-tailored clothes from age 10, where Paul will go behind his dad to alter the design of his Christmas clothes.
That informed my going into the business. So I started designing, then taking it to the tailors. Tailors will make it out and it will look fine. People will wear it and make recommendation. This is fine, this is fine. So from there on, the connection started coming in. Then I invest largely in the business.
Paul Harris' designs became legally recognized in the year 2006, but penetrating the market was a challenge, as most Nigerians prefer labels from Europe than the proudly made in Nigeria. While the Paul Harris brand grew in leaps and bounds, COVID-19 struck.
I used to travel to bring in material, but it has not been easy. So I still leverage on the ones I brought in before. It's over a year of coronavirus now. I've not been anywhere.
On accessing credit facility for expansion, Paul Harris has undergone training and qualified for loan. But Having submitted business plan 1 year on, he is still hopeful.
What I need the money for is to expand my business, get more machines, get more hands, and start producing so that we can have off-takers to take them.
Paul Harris has a vision to expand his various production lines from jeans and t-shirts to native wears, with his target market as Nigeria's tertiary institutions where students can make money while they study, in addition to establishing a fashion school.
We have a lot of them on the street. We have a lot of them graduated that they still don't have work. I think the best thing is to have a platform for them to come in for training so that we can have enough hands to be able to reach out to many that need clothes.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The Nigerian stock market opened the week in the red. The all-share index dipped by 0.27% after Monday's trade, but the market is open this morning and yet to post figures. Outside the shores of Nigeria, Japan's Nikkei 225 jumped more than 3% as Asia-Pacific stocks mostly rise in Tuesday morning session. Buster Ebel has global market outlook.
With all eyes on the U.S. Central Bank this week, investors are looking to a parade of Federal Reserve speakers to claim market volatility. Meanwhile, Market Watch this Tuesday shows that shares in Asia Pacific bounced back as Japan's Nikkei climbed as much as 3% to recover most of Monday's losses as markets throughout the region broadly advanced. In Japan, the Nikkei jumped about 3%, largely recovering from a 3% tumble on Monday. Mainland Chinese stock edged higher as the Shanghai Composite gained about 0.55%, while Hong Kong Hang Seng Index was flat. European stocks are set for a modestly higher open Tuesday, tracking sentiment in Asia Pacific. Britain's FTSE 100 is set to climb around 22 points to 7,062. Germany's DAX is expected to add around 36 points, and France's CAC 40 is seeing 24 points higher. U.S. stock futures were little changed in early morning trade on Tuesday after the Dow Jones Industrial Average Monday posted its best day since March. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures rose 73 points. S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100 futures both traded around the flat line. Stocks in Africa, on their own part, closed Monday on mixed footing and are expected to follow positive sentiment from across the globe as the numbers begin to come in.
And of course, we end this show on that note. Business Express returns tomorrow at 3 p.m. Thank you for spending time with us. Do have a wonderful